Walk with me through the cellar door.
A storm is coming, Francis.
A portal to a more skeptical world.
Cellar Door Skeptics begins right now. Prepare for the revolution with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna.
So welcome everybody to the inaugural episode of Cellar Door Skeptics. It's great to be back. We've been off for, 2 months now. I haven't done a show in 2 months. For those of you who don't know, I used to run a podcast, web show, whatever you want to call it, called Atheist Analysis. And over the last, couple of months, I've been contemplating moving into more of a podcast realm, doing something a little different than what Atheist Analysis was. And I thought, hey, who better to do it with than somebody that I've known for a year and a half now, somebody that I live right next to for the most part, I mean, relatively compared to anybody else in the community. And I thought, hey, it's better to do a show with somebody like-minded, lives in the same town, and can help us work towards furthering a better tomorrow inside of Grand Rapids. So what I want to do tonight is give you the best podcast that we can, and you'll have to bear with us. There'll probably be a few technical issues, but tonight I want to present to you the new podcast called Cellar Door Skeptics. If you haven't heard our intro yet, we have an intro called Number Zero, and that's like our beginning intro. It kind of goes into what Cellar Door Skeptics means to me and to my new host, Chris Hanna. Chris Hanna, how are you tonight, sir?
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Are you excited? Are you excited? We haven't been on the air, either one of us, for over a month now.
Yeah, I was going to say, I've been doing Heretical Minds here and there, and I did that more recently than your last show, but we're going to change the format for Heretical Minds and make it a little bit short video stuff, so we're still doing some video work, but yeah, podcast is where it's at now.
Yeah, and so for us tonight, what we wanted to do, we have a great show planned for you. I mean, trust me, this is not going to be some rinky-dink show. It's not going to be just me and Hannah going blah, 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 blah. We're actually going to put a show together. I have a rundown, just like I did for Atheist Analysis, but this time I got a little bit more input. I got a co-host that has a science background. He's an engineer. He's got more talent in that arena than I do, obviously. And so what we're going to do is we're going to kind of put together a show for you guys that will entertain every different aspect. And guess what? The best part about this? We're not going to do 3 hours. You will not get a 3-hour show. That was one of the complaints I always got is, I love your shows, and even if you put it in podcast form, I just can't listen to 3 hours. So we're not going to do a 3-hour show. That's not what we're going to do. But tonight, before we get into kind of our intro, what the show's about, what you can expect from us, I just kind of wanted to say just a little bit. I want to thank Johnny Brotherton for giving me an opportunity on Atheist Analysis. I want to thank David Smalley at some point because he gave me an opportunity on Dogma Debate. That's how I got into the atheist community. And so what I want to do is we want to talk about what you're going to hear tonight on this awesome episode. So we're going to start out by having a conversation about what the show means, what you're going to expect. We're going to move into a music review by Chris Hanna. He's going to review one of the best albums that I've heard this year come out. Well, then we're going to have a science segment. And Chris, what's our science segment on this week?
We are going to travel through the wormhole and do some time travel.
What? We're going to time travel? Seriously? Do we actually get to really time travel?
Well, it depends. Are you going to be moving close to the speed of light or not?
Probably not.
Well, I mean, the voice communications between us will be things moving at the close to the speed of light on the electrical lines back and forth, but when it comes to large bodies moving through space, yeah, we're not going to be moving close to the speed of light, but the math is there. So we'll talk about the math. Neil deGrasse Tyson has some input, as well as Stephen Hawking. So we'll get into the nitty-gritty, dirty details.
Awesome. We're also going to bring back, I started something called Crazy Bible Verse of the Week. We're going to bring that back. I have one recorded that I recorded, a couple nights ago. I have one that I recorded a couple nights ago, and it's something that I was told by a few people, hey, we really like it. So what we want from you guys, if you're listening to this right now, and you're like, hey, I don't like the Crazy Bible segment of the week. If you're like, I just don't like this. This is not something for me. I think it's stupid. Chris, you're an idiot. Blah, 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 blah. I'll tell you what, just send me an email at cellardoorskeptics@gmail.com. And yes, we use Gmail right now. But go ahead, send us an email, say what you like about the show, what you don't like about the show, because without your input, we don't know how to get better. But moving on, after that, we are going to talk about some crazy shit that I used to believe, and then we'll close the show out with a discussion about Bernie Sanders. So we have two people in the room, one who is adamantly pro-Bernie, and another person who really genuinely hates politics, me. And we're going to have a conversation about Bernie and talk about the pros, the cons, and we're going to try and dig some dirt up because we can't always be. We got to be skeptical, right? What the fuck's the name of the show, Chris?
Cellar Door Skeptics, man.
Yep. So we can't do anything unless we're skeptical about it.
Yeah.
So we're going to be skeptical about Bernie tonight. And you know, Jeremiah Bannister, you might be surprised by some of the input that we will have. So let's move into the beginning of the show. We want to have a conversation, kind of talk a little bit about what the show means to us, who it is. You know, you already heard our intros. You know my background. I'm a ex-Christian, Baptist, conservative, blah, 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 father. You heard Hannah's, intro before. And if you haven't, you can go check out episode number 0, and it'll give you all the information about who we are. But to me, this podcast is a way for us to change, to bring something to the local community. I mean, our goal is to try and figure out how to get on local radio. I don't know how easy it'll be, but that's kind of some of our goals, to get on local radio, to do local events, to bring some of the information, some of the thoughts, some of the charity that we love back to Grand Rapids, Michigan. So just so everybody knows, we hail right out of Grand Rapids, Michigan, in the big-ass Mitten State. And yes, hold your fucking hand up. If you hold your hand up, and you look to the bottom left, right by the little crease. Oh, you can't see my hand because it's a podcast.
Just look for the second to last metatarsal, I believe it is, that the larger bone in your hand from the wrist extending out to the first knuckle.
That's where we live. So tonight, Chris, tell us a little bit about the science. I mean, you did a 1-hour show in Heretical Minds about science, and we're not going to do a 1-hour show on science because, no offense, science awesome, but I would probably fucking fall asleep. It would be something we'd be like, yep, hey Chris, wake up, and you'd be throwing fucking pencils at me from across the room, and it would be a mess. So tell us a little bit about some of the science segments that you've got planned for us over the next couple months.
Well, what we're looking to do is try to bring the stuff that you hear about in the news, the things that you hear about when someone says, listen, this is bullshit. When someone starts talking about the Big Bang Theory, we'll cover the physics, the quantum, the problem with mixing relativity and quantum physics and why that's a big issue. We'll cover things like the Higgs boson and whether or not the weight matters for things like supersymmetry and chaos theory. And we'll also, like tonight, we're going to cover time travel, which there is absolute mathematical evidence that says time travel is generally possible under Einstein's general relativity principle. And we can prove it. We can actually test it by speeding things up in a vacuum close to the speed of light. And those particles last longer for the decay that they naturally would burn out in because they're moving so fast. So we have the twin theory, which is if you put a twin out in space, just out at a satellite's distance from the Earth, and one stays on Earth, the twin in space will actually age less than the one that stays on Earth. These things are they're genuinely provable mathematical theory. We can find the data. We have the experimental data. By that twin theory, we use atomic clocks and things of that nature. So what we're going to try to do is bring in the really specific stuff, the stuff that I do weird research and read on Nature and scientific magazines, and try to bring it into a layman's term stuff so we can have a nice conversation about it. You don't have to make that your weird hobby where you sit in your parents' basement and dig through the science channels.
Oh, I mean, you do.
That was my past until I bought a house, and now I sit in my own basement digging through the weird science channels, but it doesn't matter anymore. What we want to do is just make it accessible, because the idea for the whole Skeptics podcast is we're skeptical about something, so we'll look into both sides of the argument and try to find a better answer, but we're not going to find absolutes. We're not going to give you the answer. We're just going to give you a little bit more information. If we can break it down easier for you to understand, that you can understand quantum mechanics a little bit better and know that Schrodinger's cat is both alive and dead at the same time, that's what we're going to try to do.
So hold on. So you used to live in your parents' basement, right? And you're like, hey, that's where I found my love of science. But
Kind of.
My question is it's not when you bought a house that you quit spending all your time on. It's when you got a girlfriend and got married. When she moved into the same house as you and you were like, hey, I no longer have to stare at a book. I no longer have to stare at all this shit. I actually have a girlfriend I can go hang out with, a real human being. That's when you had to have quit sitting around for 17 hours a day staring at a science book.
Well, no, I didn't. I never actually sat around that much. I've always been a machinist and got my engineering degree just on the east side of the state. But I had been dating my now wife for 10 years, the entirety of my college. And when I started college, I was nowhere near as interested in the things I'm interested in now. So this entire escalation of interest in science and self-education and exploring the creepy depths of the science interwebs has all been during our relationships and when she was away at different schools and I finally bought a house and we moved back in together from being, she was in Indiana and I was in Michigan, so hours and hours and hours apart. It hasn't changed. I still have a basement with a man cave, and I still sit down there for a few hours every night doing with the Heretical Minds podcast, or when I used to show up every Sunday on the Atheist Analysis podcast, and we would shoot the shit. That was just. The times hadn't changed much. I've been staring at a computer screen for years and years and years.
Well, cool. Some of the other segments that you're going to hear, obviously you heard about our science. And I'll be honest, science and politics are going to be a big influence in interviews. Yeah. You're going to hear some politics. You're probably going to hear local politics too, though. Chris, Han, and I, again, the goal is to bring Grand Rapids to the world, right? You probably heard of Grand Rapids, Michigan, or you fucking haven't. You've definitely heard about Detroit. Everybody's heard about Detroit. So if you haven't heard about Grand Rapids, Google it. It's actually like the second largest city, isn't it? It's the second largest city in...
I would say second or third. I'm not sure if Lansing is bigger still or not, but I do know that Grand Rapids is the fastest growing city in the state. With the Detroit decline and general stabilization, Lansing really hasn't had any influx in or out. It's been pretty consistent because of the politics there. Yep. Grand Rapids has been growing like crazy.
Yeah, and so you're going to hear some local politics. We are going to talk local politics. Very sorry, but our local politics funnel into that conservative side. We have that conservative tinge that lives over here, even on the west side of Michigan. We're also going to talk quite a bit about, national politics. But the big thing for me, I guess, the bigger thing is we're going to bring some humor to it. In Atheist Analysis, we didn't have as much humor. We were very serious. Johnny and I were very serious people. We did a conversation with Christian show. Yeah, we did some light stuff, but we're going to try and bring a little bit more diversity to this show, I guess, if you want to call it. So we got some music reviews planned, and no, we're not only going to do death metal reviews, even though that is both of our musical loves is death metal, And in a second, I'm going to ask Chris what his favorite is. So if you're listening, Chris, because you're sitting across the room, make sure you pay attention. We got to figure out who our most favorite album is, or artist is, I'm sorry. And so we're going to do that. We're going to talk about scientific developments. We're going to do election coverage, especially when it comes to the Democratic debate. We're both obviously very leftist center individuals, and we're going to do a lot of debate coverage. It's all right. It's right.
2 months off, man. You're rustier than hell.
So basically after that, what we're going to do is we're going to do some humor. We've got something we are going to call Cooking with the Chris's. So within the next month, you're going to hear an episode that it's going to have Cooking with the Chris's, because I love to cook. Chris Hanna loves to cook. For fuck's sake, we like to cook. So we're going to provide some recipes, and they're not going to be atheists. We're just going to provide recipes for you.
Yeah, how do you pull a belief-based system out of food? Like, it's food, it's good food. There's no like religious food. Unless you're going to be going to like matzah or some kind of wafers or something.
Yeah, there is no religious food. It's just whatever the church says. Hey, this is fucking religious. Therefore, there's no such thing as religious food. But there's everybody, atheists, Christians, everybody loves food. So we wanted to do a little bit, probably just once a month, where we talk a little bit about food. And we're also going to do something called a monthly charity alert. We're going to pick a charity every month, and once a month we're going to have a conversation about it. But that leads me into something else, and we got to get out of this segment. We've already been in here for 15 minutes, but before we walk out of the segment, I wanted to make sure we had a conversation about charity. So if you go to our Patreon page, Patreon Cellar Door Skeptics. You're welcome to sponsor us per episode. We're going to do four episodes a month. You could do as little as $1. But the best part is we're going to take 10% of everything we bring in for the whole year, no matter what. If we bring in $10, 10% of that's going to get donated to a charity. And what we'll do is if there's a lot of money and a lot of people donating, we'll even open it up so you guys are able to vote on it. Chris and I will go, hey, well, these are the 5 we like. You guys vote. We have all sorts of things planned for the Patreon. So if you want to support us, if you want to help Chris get a better microphone than his...
Come on, it's a USB and it's decent. I know you got your fancy gear, but it's decent, man. I'm a nerdy deaf kid who hangs out in the basement. This is what I got.
So if you want to help get him a new microphone, or you want to help pay the graphic artist that's working on coming up with a logo for us, that would be awesome. But again, everything you donate, there's going to be a percentage that goes to charity. And people are going to go, why the fuck did you pick 10%? So I'm just going to tell you, I picked 10% because that's what religious people are told to pick, right?
Oh.
I did it on purpose. It's simple. It's a simple mathematics. It fits with me. I'm post-religious. I used to give 10% of my tithes every fucking week. So I had a paper out, Chris. I bet you probably didn't know this. When I was 8 years old, I started delivering papers with my parents, and I was required to tithe 10% at 8 years old. So every week I had to count my fucking pennies and all my shit out so that I could put money into the offering plate every week.
That's brutal, man. That's one of the best things, that I never had an upbringing to the point where it was, this is the one way, this is the other way. I had both Christian and Judaistic upbringing to the point where it was like, oh, this is a story for one side of your family, this is a story from the other side of your family. So I knew what every other thing was, but I just didn't have to pull the trigger, and it all turned into just some nice stories, but it didn't turn into the basis for my life.
Yeah, and so I thought 10%. That way, I got to give the Christians something, right? I mean, I got to give them something to bitch at me about. I got to give them something where they can go, oh yeah, that cocksucker, yeah, he's just doing the same thing Christians do. He's asking for money. So I had to do something just similar, just to throw them a bone, because I guarantee you within the first month, I'm going to get 20 emails saying, hey, you sound like a church, you're asking for money, and you're going to give to a charity. That's what churches do. So I just figured, fuck it, I'm just going to embrace it. And guess what? Charities went out. So yeah. If we bring in $1,000 a month, if we bring in $5,000 a month, 10% that's going to go to charity. And I'll tell you what, Chris and I don't want to do this for a living. I mean, we both have jobs, not that we make a lot of money, but Chris and I both have jobs that we like. So if for some reason the podcast took off and we made $5,000 a month, neither one of us are going to quit our jobs.
No.
We're not going to do that. I mean, we both love what we do. I found a passion where I work, but we're going to donate more money. So if we bring in $5,000 a month, I'll tell you what, if we hit $5,000 a month, Chris, 50% of that is going to go to a charity.
Oh, I'm 100% behind that. That's one of the biggest things that I wanted to change as far as what I've been doing in the atheist community and what I've experienced and been a part of is I don't really like the idea of the Patreon begging for money stuff that a lot of people do. I've had one popular blog come out. But if it's something like this, that is going to be a good, meaningful thing, and I guarantee you it's going to charity, then I can get behind it. Because for me, the biggest thing that I want is for an increase in atheist or agnostic or just secular non-belief. I want more activism, but I want actual activism instead of the armchair activists liking and sharing stuff. I want to see dollars and cents. I want feet on the ground. I want to do garbage pickups. I want to do local charity work that we, in our actual physical forms, take care of something and make a difference and make a change. Because I mean, it's all great to be telling each other how great we are, but in the end, we really need to start getting involved and take care of stuff personally. So that increased 50%, no problem. I just hope everyone else can support us enough to get us to that point.
Cool. Well, so we've spent a lot of time talking about ourselves, telling you kind of about our podcast. We don't want to spend too much time. You don't want to listen to us talk about our podcast all night. I mean, that'd be pretty fucking boring, right?
Vanity is my favorite sin.
Yeah. Gluttony's probably mine, or boozing. One of the two. I don't know which. I don't have a favorite sin. I like them all. I'm a very sinful motherfucker. So as we walk the fuck out of this segment, as we get out of the segment, Chris, we talked about music reviews, right? So who's your favorite artist? What's your favorite artist?
One of the reasons why I picked the review that I did, Fear Factory has been probably one of the most influential as far as my music loves. And I have to go with Burton C. Bell. And what he did to me, what he did to my poor brain when it came to Soul of the New Machine. That was just a complete mindfuck, and that is where it is, and that's for me.
And so for me, my favorite music artist at this current time, because mine changes literally every fucking week, but right now, my favorite artist, Pig Destroyer. So if you don't know who either of those are, go fucking look up Pig Destroyer, go look up Fear Factory, and in the next few minutes, you are going to hear a hell of a lot more about Fear Factory. So make sure you guys stick around. We don't do commercials like I used to on Atheist Analysis. We do short commercials. When I told you I cut them down before, I fucking have obliterated them. We're talking 10 to 30-second commercials. So make sure you guys hang out with us, and we will be right back with Chris's music review of Fear Factory's new album. Stay tuned.
Hey guys, this is Wyatt Mathers from the Atheist Avengers podcast. You are listening to the Cellar Door Skeptics. Prepare for the revolution.
Like what you're hearing? Check out more Cellar Door Skeptics every week right here on Spreaker and iTunes. Make sure you come back and check out new episodes with your hosts, Christopher Tanner and Chris Hanna. And always, remember, prepare for the revolution.
Welcome to the first album review on the Cellar Door Skeptics podcast. I am Chris Hanna, also known as Duffalosophy. We plan on reviewing new music pretty regularly, and we'll be in the constant search to find great new music brave enough to question, attack, or even ridicule organized religion. Today, we will be reviewing one of my personal favorite bands, Fear Factory, and their newest offering, Genexus. Released August 7th, this album has been around for a couple of months, and I've been absorbing the sterile intricacies of the immediately recognizable rhythms mastered on past albums, Demanufacture, and Obsolete. I keep coming...